Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
I'm here with a kind-hearted woman named Michele, who has agreed to share her journey and her hope and enthusiasm and struggles and trials and tribulations and progress and observations so that you can benefit from her journey as well. Right, Michele?
Yes. Happy to talk.
Thank you. We're happy to have you talk. Could you start with a little bit about you and your food struggles?
Sure. I would say I've had disordered eating for 25 plus years. I tried looking at different books and researching things online and different programs to stop the binge eating. And I can say now I've gone over a year totally without any binges. I truly feel like that is a part of me that is gone. It was really because of all the tools and information and resources that I was able to get.
Isn't that lovely? Could you be more specific?
Sure. Listening to podcasts, it really made me feel like, okay, this is the program I want to go with. I then got the book, which also was great. Honestly, I did well on my own for a few months of just doing that. Then I was like, you know what, I'm having some slips and I have a feeling if I do the intensive program that can help with that. So I did an intensive, which was great. There was the perfect amount of accountability and the lectures were excellent. I did great with that for 6 months. And then I think I had one binge, then got right back, one more binge. I didn't go totally back to where I had been, but I was getting pretty sloppy. And I was like, I want to do the intensive another time to really nail this pig in the coffin. And that's when I did just nail the pig in its coffin.
How? What did you learn during that intensive?
Well, even looking back, I think the whole pandemic was now just another form of the whole, this is so stressful. I viewed that as a different squeal, but I think it was the same. Taking the intensive again, I was fully involved in the first intensive and the second. I took them both seriously. I don't know. I would describe it. I'm a yogi. I love yoga and I've been doing it for 20 years. And I still take the beginner classes because the more and more you do it, the more you realize, oh, I can make Warrior One a little bit better by doing this or that. So it was like that. Hearing the lectures again and the phone calls that you can listen to, even if you can't participate in them for whatever reason, just more solidified what I already knew. For example, there were certain analogies that you would use that just really stuck with me even more. One thing that really has helped me, say you're going through a stressful time, how would you feel if a week from now, after you get through that stressful time, you stayed on plan? And I have used that. COVID went through our house kind of staggered. We had stayed away from it for this long. But I think in the old days, I would have been, oh, this is so stressful. I deserve a treat, this or that. Instead, I was like, okay, this is going to be really stressful. How would I feel after we all get through it, knowing that I stayed on plan? And that got me through it. And I stayed completely on plan. And I'm just more like I was on a vacation, which used to be problematic, but using the tools now, I can go on vacation and look forward to the vacation, enjoy it while I'm there. And then when I'm back from the vacation, feel good about how it went.
Michele, I really like that you look at it like a yoga practice. Something very interesting about that. About 5 years ago, I went on this date
Mhm.
and the girl said, "Oh, you're a binge eating practitioner." And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I've got the cure for binge eating. You just do 20 minutes of yoga when you have a binging urge." She used to binge all the time and then she'd do 20 minutes of yoga. And I
Mhm.
said, "Why does that work?" And she said she doesn't know. And I started to ask around a little bit. And I discovered that the deactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, the emergency response system, and the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which tells you it's okay to rest and digest and that there's no emergency. I'm a yoga practitioner also. I do it most days. And I then started to notice that she was actually right. There are far fewer cravings after a yoga practice than before. And I started thinking more seriously about how the tools that we teach are not really just like a technique that you learn once and then that's it. And they're not just like installing a bunch of Nazi food policemen in your head. They're a way of life that you practice day in and day out. So I really like that you see it like that, and then that's really helped you to integrate it into your life. Not that it's a whole lot of work to keep it going. It just
Right.
becomes more of a natural part of you, but it's a sacred practice, and there's always something you could do a little better.
Yeah, it's only been a few years, but life changes, routines change. If you have kids, they get older, different things change. So it's constantly being aware of, okay, that used to get me into trouble. So I needed that rule. But now I don't really need that rule, but I do need this rule. I love how you guys say aim for perfection, forgive yourself with dignity. Again, I haven't had any major binge slips, but if I have a little slip, right? Then I will stop myself and be curious about it. Why did that happen? Does it require a change in rules? Should I have done this? That I look at it more like a learning opportunity. And oftentimes it is just a little tweak in my rules. I mean, my rules have certainly changed over the years, but I don't view it as work. It's more just take care of that. Then it's smooth sailing a little bit, if that makes sense. And another thing I think is important, I've heard people on the calls say, okay, they hear someone doing really well and then they slip. And why is that? And I've heard you use the analogy of when a baby is learning to walk, right? They start taking a couple steps, fall, a few more steps, fall. They don't judge themselves or anything. And eventually they're a walker, right? And if you go further with that analogy, so at the age of whatever, 18 months, you consider them a walker. But then as that baby goes through life, right, they become a child, a teenager, a grown adult, an older person. They're, of course, going to slip or trip on something. And it doesn't mean, though, that they're not a walker. I tripped on a Lego the other day, right? So I learned from that. Okay, I should have moved that earlier. But it didn't take away the fact that I'm now a walker. It wasn't like before I was walking as a 15-month-old.
And it doesn't mean that they've stopped the growth process. Life is
Yes,
an ongoing learning and growth process. And it's odd that there's this one area with food or sometimes with alcohol or drugs. People feel like if they fell down, that means they can't get up and they're broken and that the growth process has to necessarily stop. It's really just reptilian brain motivated activity. The reptilian brain would like for there to be no further growth. It would like for you to be able to just indulge and indulge and indulge. But the truth is that you keep learning if you decide you're going to keep learning.
yeah.
Michelle, do you have
Yeah.
any refutations in particular that you'd be willing to share? People love when they hear specific refutations.
I basically have one rule just to plan ahead of time what I'm going to eat for the day with a couple conditionals. And sometimes what would happen is I would plan, say it's an occasion. Okay, I can eat healthy all day and then I could have one piece of cake. And then what was happening was sometimes I would eat the cake and then be like, you know what, I can afford to have a cookie as well or something like that. So nothing that would really tip the scale or do anything. But over time, doing little sloppiness like that, I did gain like 5 or 10 pounds. So it eventually was doing something. Besides that, I would be annoyed at myself that I went off plan. So, me realizing it's not all about weight. If the pig was saying, but you can have a piece of cake and the little cookie, you're not going to gain weight. It's not going to change your health situation, right? All of that is true. But I would say back, but I'm going to be annoyed. I don't want to spend the rest of the afternoon annoyed at myself that I planned one thing, I did another, I broke my food rule. So I think it's important to point out what the accurate things that the pig is saying And that one took me a while to get. That's why I'm sharing that one, because for a while it was like, well, yeah, nothing really is changing if I have that extra cookie.
What was the refutation?
It was just, I don't want to, that I'm going to be annoyed at myself if I do, even if it doesn't change my health situation. And also it took me a long time to figure out the like, oh, screw it. I'm just going to consciously break my food rules. Screw it. That one took me a long time to realize, like now, if that happens, I say, no, 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 no. The pig is saying that. I don't want to just screw it. I'm going to be so annoyed at myself after. I'm going to feel physically ill. I'm going to be more irritable, all the things that I don't want to be. I want to be a calm, present, patient person. And if I just F it, all of that is going to be gone.
I tell people to memorize a refutation for the who cares, just do it, or F it, just do it, which is I don't care that you don't care, pig, because I care very much.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And what you were saying before was that you shifted from, well, you're not going to get the better health outcome that you want right away, to I just don't want to do this. It's just not a life that I want to live. I want to live an addiction-free life.
Right. Yes. Another thing that was helpful, sometimes if it were a stressful day or a week or whatever, and I'd say, I deserve a treat. So now I tell myself that a treat is something that you look forward to, you enjoy it while you're doing it, and it feels good after. So yoga, let's take that, right? Before I do a yoga class, I'm looking forward to it. It feels good while you're doing it. And after, you feel great. But binging or even just going off plan, maybe you're looking forward to eating the cupcakes and they taste delicious while you're doing it, assuming it wasn't a planned indulgence. It feels bad after. So that little litmus test has been helpful for me. And there are plenty of things. I made a list of things that, getting lunch with a friend or coffee with a friend feels good before, during, and after, taking a shower. There really are a number of things that you can do.
Michele, what you're observing is that binging isn't a treat, it's a punishment.
Yes, right.
Your very specific scenarios that prove that. The characteristic of a treat is that it feels good before, during, and after. The characteristic of a punishment is that you're seduced into it before, and then it doesn't feel so great halfway through, and then it feels awful when you're done.
Yes.
Binging isn't a treat, it's a punishment.
Right. And people don't realize that you can absolutely plan a treat. If you want to have a donut or whatever, you can plan that. I know some people cannot do that and they need to never have that. But if you are the type of person who can do that, then that's fine. And that to me can feel good. But yeah, it's the binging or the going off plan that is not a treat at all.
What should I have asked you that I didn't ask you? Something you wanted to make sure my audience knew?
Well, I would definitely recommend the intensive, especially if you've been listening to the podcasts and they resonate with you and you liked the book. It's so worth it. Do the work. It's not a crazy amount of work, but you do have to make a bit of a commitment for that. And then if you've done the intensive and you're debating if you should do it again, I would definitely recommend do it again. It's just going to make everything that much tighter, if that makes sense.
A lot of people get a lot out of the second run through. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't need to, that's fine. But if you're debating it, I would say go for it. I think a major part of the program is you do a ritual right before you eat. There are like a number of things you do in this ritual, but it teaches you to take a pause before you're eating, which I think so many of us, and we have it, but we don't totally have it, are like, all right, I get it. It all makes sense. But what can you do when you get that effort feeling, right? It kind of seems like it happens really quickly. And I think this gives you this pause and more than just a pause. It doesn't allow you to have that, okay, I'm just going to go for it, because it gives you a replacement behavior, I think is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that was big. And then when I say it took it to another level, you're just more present about things in your life that are making you happy. Like, for example, I'm appreciating nature a lot more because I'm not binging and I'm on my food plan. It's freeing me up to enjoy and appreciate other things in my life. I'm just so grateful for the program, and I encourage anyone listening to take advantage of all it has to offer.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Michele.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, I'll see you in the calls, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.